Episode 4, Chasing the Sun, Season 1, just wrapped up. I loved it, man. It was more of the background behind the game. They're getting closer to the World Cup final at this point. The teams that they had lined up on this episode, their first game was against Japan, and the second one was against Wales. But I really love how they start the intro of this episode, looking at the players on the bench, or as they say in rugby, the players in the stands. And in America, in football, we would just call that like our practice squad. These are the men that prepare and analyze the opposition for the following week, and they run the same plays, the mannerisms, the speed, the pace. They basically mimic the opposition, and it's cool to see that you have that aspect in rugby as well. And what I really loved about them highlighting those bench players is that they're the unsung heroes on a team. Of course, you're going to see, the starting squad within rugby, the 23 athletes that are on the pitch at that game day, but there's so many people and players preparing the starters and the players that are showing up for that game to get ready. And I love that they highlighted the practice squad, or the guys in the stands, so to speak. And one aspect that I really loved about that was one of the athletes said, and for the life of me, I'm not able to, I didn't get his name, but he said, of course, as an athlete, as somebody who is competitive, you're gonna have that ego spill into it. Like, I know I should be out there. I want to be on the field. I want to be out there playing under the bright lights. But he said that's the ego that lasts for a couple days, knowing that you're not going to make the starting roster. He says, but professionalism is preparing your guys and your teammates for the game ahead. And I really loved how he framed that, because as we're looking at these professional athletes, we understand that yes, we're all fighting and competitive and wanting to be that player on the field, making it happen for ourselves, for our families, for our team, for our nation. But if you fall into a role where you're not in that respect, you have to be able to fulfill that role to your highest capability. And by following your role, you're helping the bigger picture, the bigger scope, and moving you towards the objective. And essentially winning the World Cup is the main objective, but completing the goal. And I really love that they highlighted the bench players in that respect and gave them that love and gave us the insight to the mentality it takes and the professionalism that it takes to take that role and do it effectively in preparing the starting roster for the matches ahead. And that takes us into like our Japanese game, the Japan game. I really love how South Africa, and especially like how Razzie creates that us against the world mentality. He creates that chip on the shoulder, that narrative to make it personal. And a lot like how the documentary The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, a small event would happen, whether it was malicious, whether it was whatever. Michael Jordan would take that one event, something that somebody said, something that happened, and make it extremely personal, like a personal vendetta against that team, that person, and just make it that burning fuel, that desire to show you like, I'm gonna prove you wrong, right? And Razzie does an incredible job of doing that. And like how they're talking about how leading up to the game prior to playing Japan, the host team, the nation team, the Japanese, like all of the accommodations, all the fans, they're gracious, they're welcoming, they're friendly, they're happy, supportive, and all that. But the moment that South Africa ends up playing Japan, it completely shifted the narrative. The attitude switched. The Japanese fans became super cold. They weren't helpful. They weren't supportive. They wouldn't turn on the lights for the practice field. The wives had to pay for their wives to get hotel rooms all of a sudden. And Razzie used that as a narrative. It's like us against the world. They made Japan the enemy in that sense. Like, they still have the love and respect for Japan, but he said for this 1 week they are enemies. Created that narrative, created that chip, and it's something that fueled that team to where they were looking at every situation. It's just like, oh, they're everybody's against us. Now it's South Africa against the world, and it gave them something to hang on to and not fall into complacency where they feel like, oh, everything is great, because you can get lulled into a disadvantage, right? Because there's times on a field, and I've mentioned prior, where as athletes we're used to used to the shit talk. We're used to the fights that happen in a game, and it's just like that gamesmanship that happens in every sport, right? So we're used to that, like the aggressive nature of it. But the scariest players, like the ones that get in your head the most, I found from my experience in athletics, are the calm, cool, collected individuals on the field. They're just like, hey, how's your day going? You doing well? A play happens, they help you up, you'll get back at it the next play, good play, whatever, like that. And you're just like, what the hell? Like, that is more intimidating than the guy jumping and screaming in your face like, I knocked you on your ass and this and this and this. And it's like, when you have that environment where it's sort of like almost like Japan gave it's funny, but I know they probably didn't mean to do it. They gave South Africa a reason to succeed in that moment. And you can't get a whole nation to do this. Maybe you can, I don't know. Had they continued to keep that same temperament throughout, where Japan, all of the hosts, all of the fans or whatever, if they could have coordinated it to a way to, like, Japan's playing South Africa and all the fans still treat the South African rugby team with grace, happiness, positivity, warmth, and all that, like, they still get the rooms, all the food, all the service, turning all the lights on, and sort of having like that same demeanor throughout the entire process, all they're playing their nation's team, it could have been used as like a war tactic where you lull the opponent into comfort, where they could have lulled like South Africa into a comfort state of just like, oh, Japan's still cool, we're playing their team, they're still all nice to us, oh man, like this is nice, and sort of just disarming them. They could have disarmed him and it could have worked in Japan's advantage. Instead, they chose the route because of pride, because of ego, to mistreat them, and that gave South Africa, gave Razzie, gave the entire locker room that chip on the shoulder, and they just wanted to enforce and put their dominance on Japan, and just like he said, just beat them up, right? Because he's like, Japan, they want to take you to the dance floor, and Razzie's like, we want to take you to the gutter. And so it forced, it even made that narrative even deeper, where South Africa took him to the gutter, like the trenches, just like have that fist to fist fight, right? Like leave you bloodied and bruised. And that was it was interesting how that all developed, and they got that. And it was a big shout out to LaRue. When he got that stinger, well, we call it stinger here in football, where you hit somebody and your shoulder just drops, you lose feeling, complete numbness down the arm, and you have no movement of it. For him to be able to overcome and play through that type of injury and having like nerve damage where you're not able to feel your shoulder, and like, of course, plays were happening as from the outsider perspective, like, why is he fumbling the ball? Why is he mishandling things like that? From the outsider looking, you're like, what the hell's going on? Because you think like he's a fully functional athlete, but when you finally see the behind the scenes, you find out that he's disabled in a sense. He has only use of one shoulder. He can't feel his arms or his hand, and he's still out there fighting the fight with his team because he's sort of just like gutting it out. That is just so commendable, and those are a lot of the unwritten stories that we fail to see in athletics. The adversity that these athletes go through on a day in, day out basis, because injuries, a lot of injuries from my history, they happen, of course, they happen during the course of the game, but a lot of injuries happen during the course of practice. During the week, you're in football, you're hitting each other, you're doing blood drills, you're doing tackling drills. That's where a lot of these injuries in my experiences are sustained. And as you go into a game week, you're never 100% once the season starts. You're just working with the ability that you have and just going through the duration of a season. And I see that's the same way in rugby, right? Like, for him to play through that adversity, it says a lot about his character, like the type of, the grit that he has and the tenacity that he has. And so I just wanted to highlight that. But I love the mentality of going to a dark place, like taking that mentality, like South Africa's like, we're going to take this team to a dark place, somewhere where they never been, where you just really have to do some soul searching, like, do I really want to be in this situation right now? And I know many of you maybe not at this level playing rugby to this level, but maybe it's a workout, maybe it's something that happens in the workplace, where you have to go to a dark place where you start making decisions about life, like, how bad do I really want this thing? Like, am I willing to push that extra rep? Am I willing to do that many more sprints. Where am I going to dig deep enough before I call it quits? And South Africa instilled that mentality on their team to where, like, okay, we're just going to keep battering this team. It's going to be a fist fight through and through. We're going to go to that dark place and we're going to see who's going to withstand it or who's going to tap out. And they finally got Japan to that dark place when they did that maul dominance, where they had that line out and they mauled them all the way, like 40 plus meters, and then Faf ends up scoring the try only like 5 meters out. But that was the straw that essentially like broke the camel's back, where they took that Saturday, they being South Africa, Rassie and the forwards took that Saturday, that 2.5 meeting, to really dissect how long the ref takes before they call the play dead or whatever, call them all dead, being able to form that maul and letting them execute it. And they did all the intricacies, the analysis of it, and it all came to fruition in that moment against Japan on that maul, to where they completely dominated Japan and they took their soul essentially. And that was like the end of the game, because once you break somebody, you break their spirit, you break their will, it's over, right? Because there's no coming back from that, especially in those situations of a game, right? You can tell when a team loses that heart that they had initially going, that fights out of the dog. And they did a fantastic job of doing that, exerted their will. And even it was just like one of those bright moments for South Africa to see, like, we spent one Saturday together as a room of forwards, sitting there, no pressure situation, just talking, having an analysis, going back and forth, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, spitballing, and having that brainstorming session. And to see it come to fruition in that moment, it's just really like it's an uplifting moment. And I really like that about that, how that moment transpired. And then we go into the game with Wales, and this one was a lot of fun to watch, because I've seen the highlights of the match, and of course I get like a 50,000 view of what happened from highlights, and seeing the behind the scenes, understanding that you're getting two powerhouse nations together within the rugby world. You have a strong, dominant, and gritty team in South Africa, and now you have a strong, dominant, and gritty team in Wales, and they're not going to back down. The Welsh side is not going to back down. They're tough. They're tenacious. They're strong. They're athletic, and you have the same thing on the South African side. So it was going to be a slugfest going forward. And seeing how they're able to, me, Qrew, I love the whiteboard sessions. I love the analysis, and I come from the football side of analysis and looking at play breakdown. But seeing the whiteboarding session in rugby, that just helps me learn so much about the lingo that's used, the jargon, the play setups, like how you all are naming your plays within rugby and allowing it to unfold in the process of a game when you're structuring your game plan. And seeing how Rassie and the team was breaking down the Welsh side of their formations, their attacking, their defense, their kicking side, and then structuring his plan to counteract that, and then to also impart their will on the Welsh side. Very cool to see the inner workings of what happens in setting up that game plan. I absolutely love that, and I want to see more whiteboarding sessions, and I want to get into more whiteboarding sessions in rugby, because that's where I feel like I just really enjoy the analysis of the game. And it was just cool to see how they're sitting there having that back and forth and breaking down the potential weaknesses in the opposition. And it was super cool to see how that match prior, Cheslin Kolbe had that ankle injury that happened in Japan. And what I like is that South Africa and Rassie, they set their principles in place. So if a player misses the first practice of the week, they're 100% ineligible to play the next game. I love that. I absolutely love that, because a team without principle is lost, and it takes a strong team, a coach, to enforce those wills, to enforce that will, enforce those standards, and to stick by them no matter what. And I love how it led up to that moment to where Kolbe, by like Thursday or Friday of that week, he was full speed, he was pace, he was juking, he was cutting, he was stepping on them, and from the practice squad. And it made Rassie sort of go back in his mentality and say, like, whoa, Cheslin's looking incredible right now. Like, I'm thinking about breaking my rules of that principle and starting him this week. And that's the part where the vulnerability of Rassie is so refreshing, because he's letting us into the psyche of a coach. A lot of coaches that have ego, you see that a lot of times you see, it was part of the plan. Like, I knew I wanted it this way. This is exactly how we had it mapped. Rassie just tells you, like, things unfold and we don't know what's going on half the time. things just happen. A lot of it's not by plan. Some of it is, but a lot of it's not by plan. And he's like, and it takes, we don't always know what's gonna happen. And he talked about that with the mindset of putting Colby, and he's like, I was gonna break my principle, because even though I had those principles, my mindset was like, this guy's looking like he's in full form right now. I'm gonna put him in because that's for the betterment of the team. But the team, the staff, and even Cheslin held him to the standard of what the principles they set. He's like, he went up to Colby, and Colby gave him that look like, why are you talking to me? I missed the first practice. I'm not playing. I'm ineligible. Like, end of conversation. The staff looked at Razzie and said, no, absolutely not. We're not breaking the principles. We're holding the standard, and the game is going to be what it's going to be. But the moment you break your word, you lose all complete trust, you lose the locker room, and you lose what you stand for, because word is bond. And once you break your word, you lose the bond that you created. And I love that they were able to stick to that standard and have those principles withheld going into that match. And whether they won or lost it, to me, that makes no difference, right? Because what matters is how you show up as a person, your character, and being able to show up on your word, like your loyalty, your trust, and everything is all. I saw a bug flying by my head, my bad, is all that matters, right? And so being a person of character, high value, esteem is what's really like what I value is like characteristic traits that are admirable. And by them sticking by that, I absolutely loved that aspect of the game. And it was cool to see the back and forth between Wales and South Africa. They ended up, Wales lost, but I love when I see two nations that are just so spirited, so prideful, so resilient, and they come together and create a beautiful game. It's just, I said the word inspiring, but it's, I don't know, it's just so motivating to see, right? Because there's more that, and it's sort of the theme of, I guess I've been saying through all these episodes, it's more than a game. You see all of the nations and everything, all the people that support just these teams to get to where they are. And it means more than just the X's and O's, the points on the board. It becomes a prideful thing of like, this is who we are as a nation. This is what we represent. These are our characteristics. These are our principles. And these teams are manifestations. They're the embodiment of what a nation is. The strength, the power, the pride, the dignity, the class, like everything. The history of a nation can ride on the backs of athletics and sports. And that's what I love about what this documentary is showcasing, about how much this means to nations, how much it means to generations, and how it affects people in a positive way and brings people together. I absolutely love it. And it's just so nice seeing the behind the scenes aspect and doing it that way. One aspect I want to highlight about the match with Wales that I've written down was the idea of patience and discipline. He talked about essentially that rugby match, or that kicking match where it's going back and forth, that kick tennis where Wales will kick it, South Africa kicks it, and sort of like that boring match. So from a spectator's aspect, we're looking at it like, damn, this game is boring as hell. Like, they're just playing kick tennis right now. But from the player's perspective, that is your most sort of like nerve-wracking, enjoyable, exciting game because of the dynamics of it. It's essentially chess. The moment somebody loses patience and tries to move too many spots on the board, they take your queen. It's not about always pleasing the fans. It's about executing the game plan, having the discipline, and having the patience to run the plan and see it all the way through. Although it may not look like the beautiful match, the slugfest where two heavyweights are going back and forth and punching it out and blood's flying everywhere, it doesn't always look like that. There's that strategic aspect, that mental warfare that's happening, seeing who's going to be the first to break. I love that. I absolutely love it, because we can get sort of just like overshadowed by the brawn, the physicality, the intensity, the aggressiveness of the game. That can be overshadowed by the strategy, right? The strategy can be overshadowed by the intensity, because we want to see people going back and forth and slugging it out. But then you go to the mental side of the game, which was that Wales and the South African match. And that is that piece where it's just like the analytical aspect of the game, where your X's and O's, I say X's and O's because when you're drawing in football, you mark your players as X's and O's. The offense to be X's, the O's to be the defense, and you're going against X's and O's. And that's why I say it like that if you're not familiar with that terminology. And it's that part. It's like it's just two chess grandmasters going back and forth at one another, and whoever has that patience, who can withstand that time and that mental pressure that's happening, and allowing that opportunity to unfold, and then being able to take advantage of that is super powerful. And I love that they highlighted that part of the game to where it may not look like the most exciting thing, but on the field it's nerve-wracking because there's so much tension, there's so much back and forth, there's so much mental strategy that's happening and unfolding. And that's the part about athletics that I absolutely love, that we have the physical aspects, our bodies are going to do what they do, but then when you have the players on the field that are just from a mental aspect, that are able to play the game of chess and allow things to unfold, and to be able to calm the team down when tempers start flaring and things are going your way or not going your way. It's just cool to see all the different dynamics and shapes that a game can take, from being hyper physical to then moving over to a less physical game, but just a hyper mental game. And I think the documentary did a fantastic job of breaking that down and showing the different elements and aspects of the game of rugby and what goes into it, as far as like the mental warfare and the physical warfare, and all the events leading up to those moments. Qrew. Episode 5 of Chasing the Sun season 1, the finale, was absolutely incredible, and the quote that embodies the entire episode and this series for me is, "We are stronger together." And it really inspired hope, right? Not only in the nation, in everyone who was involved, from the Springboks teams to the community, to the fans, to the cities and villages involved. And what I really loved is how this documentary and all of the individuals on the team of the Springboks, starting with Razzie as the leader of that team, was embracing the diversity. All these athletes and staff and everybody came from such diverse backgrounds and had different upbringings. And a story that just like really resonated was the story of Makazole, where I found that super cool, where the Springboks jerseys, on the back numbers of their jersey, every player could put pictures of who they're playing for on their numbers, and the pictures were embedded in the numbers. And Makazole only had a picture of himself because he didn't have a family, because his mother passed away and all that. That's just like an incredibly moving and touching story, and just shows the type of heart that he has as a man. And just also that the players in this game, you're playing it for something bigger than yourself. It's not about the individual, it's about the nation, it's about the people that it inspires, it's about putting on for your country. And I know I've used this quote several times before, at least once before, and is that if you play for the name on the front, they'll always remember the name on the back. And I feel that this documentary really encompassed that saying and that quote perfectly, because all of these men came together, and women, because they have women on the staff as well. So I'm not trying to exclude the women that are part of the organization as well, because it takes a village to build what they built, not only from the men on the field, but everybody all the way through the entire organization and the people supporting them. So I do have to say that. But they did such an exceptional job of putting on and carrying the flag for their nation, and bringing them from what I've gathered a tough time that's happening in South Africa. It may have been like a nation going through a rough patch. There is some division, and it really sticks to the role, like playing your role in not only the game, like I talked about the bench players on the last episode, where the bench players played a role to analyze and help the starting guys get prepared for the game. But then if you look at the rugby organization as a whole, it plays a role in the South African society as part of the big structure. The sports is the uniter of a nation. It makes people feel inspired, it motivates you, it gives hope, it gives inspiration, and it brings a togetherness. And that's what they did very well. But it plays a role in that society to do that, where they're not able to affect the politics, the culture, all the other areas where a country and a nation start thriving, right? sports serves as that as a beacon of hope and a form of unity, and it does, and that's what this documentary to me encapsulated incredibly well. And we see the the physical and the mental toll that it takes on the athletes, because you see them, they see the physical manifestation of the hard work that's put on the field, because their bodies are showing it. They're sweating, they're fighting tooth and nail, and they're making these games win or loss decisions and putting it all out there. So we're able to see that, because that's where the area of focus is. But then when they zoom out and you see the big picture after winning the World Cup, all of the people in the nation that are chasing the buses, that are flooding the streets, flooding the airports, and really just embody what that victory did for the nation, what it did for that person, inspiring new generations and the current generations that are living vicariously through these men that are playing this game. And it just really serves as a beacon of hope. And I think that's what the documentary did a very, very good job of showcasing. They did an excellent job of building the character behind the jersey. We see the men on the field, what they're doing, like, oh, he's an incredible runner. He can juke for days, leaving people in the dust. They're powerful, they're strong. But when you finally peel back the layers of the skill, the talent, the athlete, and get to see who they are as a person, you get the human aspect. You get to see their personality, how they think, what their circumstances were growing up as kids, the things that they believed and wished and dreamed and prayed for growing up, and you can see who they are as a person. That's what I love about this documentary is, and documentaries as a whole, is that it really gives you an insight to the person, so you can look at them as they're just like you and I. They're normal individuals that just happen to have this capability to play a sport at the highest level in front of millions of eyes and do it at a high level. But when you peel it back, we're all just people, and this just happens to be their career, and they're very good at it. But they have the same dreams, the same hopes, the same fears, and challenges that we go through. It's living the human experience, and it really humanizes the person. So you're not looking at them from the lens of looking down from the stands and saying this happened. You can stand next to the individual and be like, we're all walking the human experience together, and I understand where you're coming from and your background, and just really understanding one another and having a respect and care for the individual behind the uniform. And that was just an exceptional documentation of the journey from beginning to the win in the World Cup. And I think Razzie said it great to his team as they started the documentary. Pressure is what's happening in their country currently. The climate was a lot going on with crime and a lot of different factors where people are in poverty, not able to eat. There's a lot of things going on that are true human tragedies that are happening. That's the pressure. Being able to play the game of rugby, being able to play any sport, that's the privilege. You have the privilege of wearing the jersey, being able to play the game and run up and down the field and score points and do all this. But that privilege is what gives people that hope, because it takes them out of the mundane, like the normalcy of life, where you're going through your challenges, working in life, taking care of a family, going through your job, the day-to-day monotony of life, and having that event on a Saturday. You get to spend those 80 minutes to potentially, change your life for the better, to empower you to have a better week, a better life, to share moments with your loved ones and friends and things like that, have a drink at the pub. That's what the camaraderie, the unity that's built from athletics, and that's what I absolutely love about it. And when it is able to be used as a vehicle as a positive vehicle to help one another, I think that's just what's so beautiful about it. And I love also when Razzie was in the locker room, he was talking about regret, about what my dad always used to tell me. You have to leave it all on the field. Leave nothing said, leave nothing unturned. You put all your blood, sweat, and tears into that moment, and you leave it out all on the field. So when you go back to the locker room, you can go back knowing that You did everything you could. You left it all out there, poured every ounce of your energy, your soul into that thing. Whether it's sports, whether it's career, whether it's family, you left it all out there on the field. So when you look back, there's no regrets. There's nothing that you can say, I wish I could have done better, shoulda, coulda, woulda mentality. It's knowing that you did everything you could with the given circumstances, and you poured your heart into it, and you can go to sleep comfortably, no matter how it turns out, whether it's a win, whether it's a loss. And I love that he's talking about that to his team and saying, leave no room for regrets. Regrets, I have it quoted, regrets always come too late. And that was just said so perfectly, right? Because it happens to you, and I'll just speak for myself, for instance, when I'm sitting here thinking, like, it's always the quiet moments that are the worst at times, right? Like, I'm a guy who can sit and think, but there's moments when, like, I'm sitting in the living room and I just sit and think, and a moment hits me, and I'm just like, fuck, man, like, what could I have done better in a situation? It's not like a regret, or just like about life, about where I am, and thinking about where I want to be, like in building QSN, or the transitions that QSN has taken, and the failures and successes that we've had. And I sit and think, like, the quiet times are sometimes the worst, because that's when you're forced to sit in that moment, to sit and explore that emotion, to sit and explore your mind, and really have those conversations with your inner self. And the thing I've been proud of is that I have left it with no regrets because of what my dad instilled in me, or what my mom instilled in me, of having that mindset of leaving it all on the field. And that's the part of having a great teacher and a credible coach, a great mentor in your life, which I feel that Razzie is. That mentorship of giving just that key nugget, that key quote, is something that, for me, when my parents told me that, it lasted in my entire lifetime until my current age now. That moment, I know that little quote will last those players an entire lifetime, and they will share it with their kids, and their kids will pass that down, hopefully. And those are the type of positive mentors, coaches, and influences that change the world for better, because it takes it out of the game aspect. It's not about the individual, it's about the team. So the players, yes, they're on the field, they're the ones, grinding it out for 80 minutes and going day in, day out, traveling. That's the individual doing the job. But as a team, they're representing the Springboks, but the Springboks are the team of South Africa, which represents that entire nation, all the people that create that beautiful nation, and all the beautiful nations in the entire world, not only in the rugby world, but just the entire world. We're all a part of a team, and that's why I can see just how much pride, unity, and cohesion that sports build. And I just love that this documentary really highlighted that aspect of it, taking the focus off of the individual player, showing who the player is, and having us have a respect and understanding of who they are, but then taking the focus off and understanding that they are playing for the nation of South Africa, to show that you can overcome, give them the hope, give them that positivity to make it to the next day, to keep striving forward, that battles that happen every day, just being that inspiration, that beacon of hope, is absolutely powerful. And I think that documentary did an exceptional job, and I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to check out the second season of this and the next 5 episodes. Qrew, as always, I appreciate you being here, checking out my videos, welcoming me into the world of rugby, into the family of rugby, as I've continued to grow, learn, and study this game, and just try to get better at analyzing the game from a whole, from the players to the teams to the sets and all the nations as they go into it. I'm really just becoming a student of rugby, or have become a student of rugby, and have a big vision of where I want to take QSN by the time we get to the Rugby World Cup here in 2031. And you all have just continued to build and create this with me. So I view you as my family in this respect of building QSN together, because of your support, all of your just positivity and insight to the ins and outs of the games, Qrew. And it's just been an exceptional journey. I'm absolutely loving it, and just have so much humility. I mean, I'm humbled by the support. I'm humbled by the success and growth that we've had together, and I'm just really looking forward to how we're going to continue to evolve and grow in this space, and continue to just show love to this beautiful game of rugby and this entire world, as we come together and unite as individuals in this entire world, and enjoy this beautiful game together and have that fun banter, is which what makes sports what it's all about. We can all banter with one another, have our back and forths, have the teams that we love and support, but we all have a love and respect for one another, which is the most important thing. And once the cleats are hung up and everything and it's all said and done, the dust clears the air, we all share a drink in the pub and just relax and enjoy each other's company and have a good laugh about it, Qrew. And I think that's the beauty of sports, and I think that's the beauty of rugby, and what we're all enjoying and building together, Qrew. So I love you. I appreciate you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on these reviews, and we will continue to move forward, Qrew. I'm going to check out season 2. We'll get those knocked out. Yeah, we'll continue to move forward in a positive direction, Qrew. I love you. I appreciate you. Always stay laser focused on your dreams and your vision, and remember that you're in control. Catch you on the next one, all right? Peace.